snowboarder rescued near Cypress Mountain Resort as search crews warn of avalanche risk. This has happened way too many times this year. And if you want to go places like this, you need to know how to be safe. Hi, I'm Freja Henrichsen, and my Masterworks topic is how to tread safely, all about skiing in the backcountry. I have always been pretty excited about skiing. I started skiing when I was 5 years old, and I've been stylish ever since. I clearly remember one of the first green runs I ever did. It was the cut on Grouse Mountain. My brother and I were complaining the whole way down, and at one point we both did big J turns and came crashing into each other. We were both probably crying, at this point, but when we got to the bottom of the run, we asked my dad with smiles on our faces, "Can we go again?" Since then, we have skied almost every weekend. We initially skied at Grouse Mountain, where we progressed in our skiing, but our family wanted a bigger mountain that was closer to the ferry. We then got passes at Cypress Mountain. I think that this is where my brother and I improved quickly. There was more terrain to choose from, which was helpful for learning different styles of skiing. 2 seasons ago, I really wanted to become a racer, and I was focusing on mostly groomers and getting really good and fast at carving. I love doing all terrain, but this season I focused on getting better at moguls, jumps, and drops. These are good goals for when I'm resort skiing, but the point of my Masterworks project and my real goal was to get into the backcountry. So, why the backcountry? About 5 years ago, when my dad started going on backcountry trips with his friend Dave Suda, I became more and more interested in getting out there. My dad would always come home and rave about how amazing his trips were, and this made me more excited and curious. I've only been to resorts where you get a lift up and to the top of the mountain and have the joy of skiing down. But my dad has always said that one run in the backcountry is worth 100 at the hill. And let me tell you, it's worth it. Woo-hoo! This is me. Who is that? This is me. As you can see, I was pretty excited about that run. When you go into the backcountry, you have more terrain to choose from, and you're potentially the only one skiing that slope, which means more pow for you. To get safely into the backcountry, there are many steps you need to take, and for my Masterworks project, I decided to prepare myself for this. In this presentation, I will outline what you need for a backcountry trip, including gear and fitness. Then I will go on to what to do before a trip and some technical things when you get into the mountains. And then, of course, search and rescue if things go wrong. And finally, I will take you through my process journal. It's quite fitting that I love skiing so much because it was my ancestors that invented it. The olden wooden skis were dated around 7,000 years ago in Scandinavia. Being prepared before you go into the backcountry is very important. In fact, it could save your life and others. To be prepared, you need the equipment for both safety and skiing. You need to be physically fit because you will be doing hardcore exercise all day. And if you have the right equipment and preparedness, if you don't have the right equipment or preparedness, you might not be able to get yourself or others out of a safety emergency. The last thing you need is a plan for your day and the skills to execute it. We've all been on many trips at IPS, and the teachers have drilled into our heads what we need to bring: sunscreen, hat, layers. But different from a hiking trip, you need specifics for skiing. I will be demoing all these pieces of equipment, but essentially you need fatter skis so you can stay on top of the powder, backcountry bindings that hinge at the front so your heel can lift up while walking up, touring boots that pivot at the cuff and can be in walk and ski mode, and adjustable poles. These are my backcountry skis. They are 102 millimeters underfoot, so they're fatter than a regular resort ski. Right, can you come out here? Come out here, right here. This is my ski. I love it very much. These are my adjustable poles with a flip of a switch. You can make them longer while going uphill, which it just makes it easier to walk uphill. And then shorter pulls are better to have while going downhill because your hands will always be in front of you and you can ski more aggressively and pole plant. Finding. These are frame backcountry bindings. Right now they're in ski mode, which means they're locked. But with this switch, pull them down, and then boom, the heel lifts up. And you can also have heel risers so that on steep slopes, it's easier for you to walk up. When you're back into transitioning, you just flip it back, and it's now back in ski mode. These are my backcountry boots. They essentially are regular, they look like regular boots, but they have a switch at the back, which makes them pivot at the cuff, which is a greater range of motion, and you can't really tell, but it helps a lot, and then it clicks back into ski mode where it's locked in place. Also, the bottom is more of a hardy hiking boot for boot packing. When you have all this equipment, you need something to carry it in, and that's why it's important to have a large backpack. There are backpacks that are compatible with airbags, that you pull a strap if you are in an avalanche. You've all seen a demo of an avalanche airbag when Gord Rose from Arc'teryx came to talk to us about design. You will need goggles and a helmet for going downhill, but a brimmed hat and sunglasses is best for going uphill to keep you cool while putting out so much effort. Skins are used for the climb up. They are a long piece of fabric, one side as an adhesive glue that sticks to the base of your skis. The other side is made from synthetic fibers or mohair. They're called skins because they used to be made out of sealskin. It's designed so you can glide forward but will not slip back, making you able to travel uphill. This is my skin. It can be tricky to put on your ski, but I'm going to demonstrate it. Drag me move forward so you don't think this. The top looks like this, and it hooks to the top of your ski. And then you take the bottom, pull down, and align it like so. Wasn't my best job, but then you click it at the back. So it's locked in place, and as you can see, my hand can easily travel down, but going up, it doesn't want to, which just makes you able to not slip back while going uphill. At the end of my presentation, you guys can come and see that for yourself, but just please be careful. An Avalanche Transceiver is the most important thing to have when you go into the backcountry. Your life depends on this device. Each person in the party wears one and is on send. That means that the radio signal is radiating out. The second someone gets buried in an avalanche, switch your beacon onto search mode. This allows you to pinpoint the source of the signal and the buried person. Now everyone's beacon is finding the signal of the victims. As you approach the numbers will get smaller, indicating how many meters away you are from them. I will be demonstrating this later on in my presentation. While a beacon directs you close to the body, a probe is what you use to find the body. A probe snaps together like a tent pole, and then you start striking in a systematic pattern. An avalanche shovel is used to dig someone out once you find them with your probe. They're different from other shovels because the blade can be detached from the handle, which makes it easier to store in your backpack. A bigger blade is better because you can move more snow around, but it depends on what you can fit in your backpack. Lucky for me, I got a new backcountry setup for my Masterworks. I didn't have any gear before, so I had to get the whole setup. As you can see, it's up there and here. Finally, it's not the gear that's going to get you up the mountain. It's your own muscles. I've made a fitness plan for myself that I mostly followed to build up strength in my core, legs, and glutes. So now you're ready to get into the backcountry. But first, you need to make a plan. The day before, make sure to check the weather and the avalanche forecast. On the Avalanche Canada website, you will find avalanche conditions across Canada. You can check specific weather stations and there are very detailed weather synopses. You need to know the area you will be skiing and have some backup plans just in case you can't ski your primary objective because of avalanche risk. On the day of, check the avalanche forecast again and make sure to have all of your gear ready and packed. Make sure to tell someone outside of your group where you will be and how long you will be gone for. After doing all three things, you're going to want to check in with your group. Group dynamics are key. Knowing everyone's strengths and weaknesses is important on working well together. If one person isn't feeling well physically or does not take things seriously, that person should not be going because that could lead to problems. You should also decide who has the strongest skills in areas like first aid or route finding and make them the lead on each. This is our group at Mount Curry with our guide, Joe Schwartz, in yellow. He was the best and we listened to everything Schwartzy had to say. If you followed all these steps, you are now ready to hit the slopes. But wait, there's still more things to do before when you get into the mountains. When you're in the backcountry, digging a snow pit is imperative to look at the layering of the snow and see the snow profile. A snow pit is a vertical hole to check where or what the hazards might be in the snowpack. Once you've dug a snow pit, you need to find the weak layers. With your snow saw, isolate a small column 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters, then take the blade of your shovel and lay it flat on top. Start with 10 taps articulating from your wrist, then 10 more from your elbow, and then 10 more from your shoulder, using the full weight of your arm. Don't push your shovel into the snow, but let it fall at its own weight. If a layer slides when you're just starting the test, think twice about skiing that slope. Before descending a slope, you need to assess the safety. Most avalanches occur between 30 and 45 degrees. The avulator card is a great way to help you choose if you should do that line or not. They are split up into two different columns, avalanche conditions and terrain characteristics. Each question can either add 1 or 2 points to your score. On the flip side of the card is where you graph your points. Add your points on the terrain side and the avalanche condition side and see where they meet. It will either be in the green, yellow, or red. Green, you need to take caution, yellow even more, and red is not recommended. To choose what route you are going to ski, either up or down, you need to be aware of avalanche terrain. The information contained in the card above is a great resource to help you pick your route. When skinning up, you also need to be aware of avalanche terrain. Use trees and ridgelines to your advantage as a safer option. You need to avoid gullies and areas that you can't ski out of quickly. If there is ever an avalanche, you must yell avalanche. This will let everybody know that there is one and that you need to be getting out of its way. If you're skiing and the slab starts sliding from underneath you, point your skis at a 45-degree angle downhill and ski away from it. If you get engulfed by one, let go of your poles and try to kick your skis off. You're going to start using swimming movements to keep yourself up, but if you end up tumbling, try and remember which way is up and down. Once the avalanche starts to slow down, try and make an air pocket with your arms so you might have a few more minutes of oxygen left to breathe. Once the avalanche stops, it will become like concrete, so make sure to make an air pocket quickly and stay calm. Now you rely on your friends. After the burial, establish a leader. This would either be the most experienced or most calm. The whole group needs to pull out their beacons and start doing a hasty search. This is a quick search where you will be looking for poles, gloves, and backpacks. Always pick them up to make sure they are not attached to the person. Ski in a zigzag pattern downhill until you get a signal. Once the signal is found, start skiing towards it. Make sure not to move the beacon, just move your body. Everyone will now be moving more quickly. When the signal is 5 to 10 meters, this is the fine search. To move around better, take off your skis and place them neatly in the snow so nothing gets lost or buried. Once you get to the lowest number on your beacon, mark it. Then you are going to go vertical and horizontal both ways and make a mark in the snow at 1 meter. You are essentially making a perimeter of where you need to probe strike. Okay, now I will be doing a beacon demo. So I'm going to pass around this beacon. It will be on send mode, and mine will be on search mode. So I'm going to pass it to one person and then just quickly pass it around. And I'm going to turn away. You can start presenting. And just pass it around the crowd until I say stop. I'm going to turn around so I don't know where it is. And yell at me when you're ready hiding it. Ready? Okay. My beacon is now on search mode. It says I'm 9.7 meters this way. Gotta go around this table. 6.3. Should I put my mask on? Whatever. 4.2, 3.8, 3, sorry guys. 2.4, 2, 1.9. Okay. I found the beacon, but I would be going horizontally and vertically and marking in the snow, and just so I would know where to approach it. Thank you. As you can tell, I was being very vocal, so I was yelling out the numbers so my team would know what I would be communicating well. Once you have the area where you think they are, you're going to get out your probe and start striking perpendicular to the slope. There are two methods that you can use. You can throw a strike in a spiral, all strikes 20 centimeters apart, or you can use the square method where all strikes are 20 centimeters apart as well. How you know you hit the person is the difference in depth. This is my probe. It's really easy to take out of its bag, and it's in a quick access in your backpack. So how you make it an actual probe is you throw it and pull this at the same time. So now it's a probe. It's very long, as you can see, and there are numbers, so you can either just use your general sense to look at the difference in depth, or you can keep an eye on the numbers. The shoveling technique is different from, say, shoveling in the garden. Since the snow is almost like concrete, it's easier to chop up the snow and move it behind you in paddling motions. Since you're removing so much snow, form a conveyor belt system where the person behind you is shoveling the excess snow even further back. This is super tiring and your adrenaline will be pumping, so you're going to be rotating every minute to 30 seconds or until the person gets tired and slows down. Once you find a part of the body, make your way to getting to their head. This is so you can clear their airway of snow. Once their airway is cleared, pull them out gently while supporting their neck and spine. Get out any warm clothing you can give them and start warming them up. This is my Avalanche shovel. It comes in two parts, so it's easy to store in your bag, and it's super easy to put together with just two clicks. So you chop it up like this, and then shovel it backwards. Pretty easy, except it's not easy. Now I would like to talk to you about my journey of becoming a backcountry skier. I will be going over the days that we went out and what I learned from them. Our family decided it would be a good idea to test out our gear and figure out how it works. We went up to Black Mountain, which is Eagle Chair on Cypress if you've ever been, because it was closed due to mechanical issues. So we had all of that side of our mountain to ourselves, which was pretty cool. We learned how to put our skins on and all about our safety gear, and then we did our essential beacon check. We skinned up the mountain, and me and my brother found it super tiring, and we were super bad at managing our layers, but our dad gave us some good advice. The transition from walking to skiing was difficult for me because it was super cold and I was really slow at it at that point. But we had a great run down, and overall it was a good day of learning. A couple days before we went out, my brother and my mom did a beacon search in the forest. Our objective of this day was to practice a real objective was to get to the top, but we figured out that it had rained a few days prior and had an awful ice crust on it. So our new objective was to practice digging someone out. Not a real person, though. We skinned up a little bit. It was quite awful conditions. But then my dad put in a probe and he taught us how to dig in a V trench. He also timed us to see how fast me and my brother could go, how long we could go, and it was not very much because it was so tiring. My brother and I took a 2-day avalanche safety training course in February. The first day of AST1, we were focusing on classroom information. I already knew most of the stuff we talked about because of the research I had done prior. Then we had a Zoom meeting about how to look at weather and avalanche conditions on the website Avalanche Canada. The second day, we went into the Seymour backcountry. We looked at the conditions for the day and what we saw in the snow, which was hoarfrost that could potentially become a weak layer. We practiced probing and digging and then real-life scenarios where a guide buried his backpack with a beacon in it. He came back and told us that his friend had been buried and we needed to use the steps that we learned to find it. For the first search, I was the leader. The steps came very quickly to me, so I felt like I was a good person to do that specific job, but maybe not in a real scenario because I'm less experienced. During March break, we hired a guy named Joe Schwartz. It was really good to have an experienced person that could teach us so much about safety and give us so many tips and to shred the best lines with. The first day, we toured off the backside of Whistler, but before we got into the backcountry, we did a safety briefing where we pulled out our probes and our beacons. Once Schwartzy knew that all of our gear was up to date and we knew how to use it, we skied down to our first transition spot. A transition is when you go from skiing into walking. Me, my mom, and my brother were really slow, but Joe reassured us that we would become faster at it over the next 3 days. We climbed to the top of Flute Mountain first, and it took us about 20 minutes. This is not flute, but this is what it's like skinning up, and it's a lot of hard work. It's very pretty though, it's very scenic. Over the day, we looked at overhead hazards like cornices, and we discussed that if they broke, would it be a hazard to us? We also looked at convexities in the slope and discussed if they were supported or unsupported. We had a great day and had some really good snow and a good fall for me, but it was really fun. The second day, we drove up to Pemberton bright and early to get into a helicopter. We flew up past Marriage Lake up to a ridge just below the peak where the heli dropped us off. It was sunny blue skies with absolutely no wind. Joe scouted out where we would drop in while we were all jumping up and down with excitement. We dropped in and had the most glorious run down from the shade into the sun. We got to our first transition spot and got ready to hike up again. 1/3 of the way up, we stopped and Joe talked to us about the most important topic, decision making. He brought up the term facets. Facet stands for familiarity. Even if you've been there a million times and have not seen an avalanche, that does not mean that one can't happen. Acceptance. Accepting the fact that things don't always go as planned, and sometimes you shouldn't ski that aspect or line due to avalanche conditions. Commitment. Do not be too committed to skiing a specific thing, because if that's your only objective, you can be blinded to red flags and go in and make poor decisions. Expert halo. Even if you're with a very experienced person, make sure to always speak up if you feel you're going into an unsafe place. Tracks and scarcity. You should never be racing other parties to get to a slope first because that can lead to unsafe decisions. Also, if you're pushing further and further out on the slope, you could possibly get into unsafe terrain, and make sure to be aware of that. Social facilitation. Don't try to impress anyone because frankly, no one cares and it could lead to injuries. This was our last day with Joe and we toured off the backside of Blackcomb. It had not snowed in 3 days and it was sunny those days, so we talked about which way slopes were facing and how the sun and wind would have affected them. Another thing we talked about was overhead hazards again, because we were looking at a massive cornice and we were discussing what would happen if it had broke. Schwartzy wanted us to do a classic line called Husumi couloir, so we skinned up as far as we could until we had to boot pack the rest. You can see that boot packing, you put your skis on your back and hike up a really steep slope. The couloir was super fun and we got to see the Blackcomb ice cave at the bottom, which was really cool. Overall, the 3 days that we got with Schwartzy were super fun and we got to shred some pretty sick stuff, but also learn a lot. Dave and Joe, my external advisors, offered to take me out for a backcountry day off of Whistler. We talked a lot about what I had learned already, and as Dave pointed out, I should have checked the avalanche conditions when I woke up at 5 a.m. I was glad that Dave and Joe both checked it that morning. We went up to Flute Oboe and we skied some pretty good snow on Oboe. I jumped off a cornice that was not that big, so if it did break, it wouldn't have been a big problem. I had a great day with my advisors doing what they love most. So, to conclude, as you can tell, I was saying I think I did choose a good Masterworks. Ski touring was such a good topic to research this year because with COVID, there's been a lot more people going into the backcountry. This is due to the uncertainty of resorts staying open and it being safer to stay away from people. There are a lot more young people trying out this sport as well. They might have thought that backcountry skiing was safe and easy, but this is very far from the truth. If you aren't prepared and you don't take the right safety precautions, you could die and put a lot of other people in danger. I'm so glad I got to speak to you today because you now know the steps to take that if you decide to do this, you can be more safe. In 2020, North Shore Search and Rescue responded to 151 callouts over the span of the year. In just the first 3 months of 2021, they responded to 54. If this number continues throughout the year, the number of calls they respond to will exceed last year's by 25%. This increase in numbers shows us that there's a lot more people in the backcountry that are possibly unprepared. After I finished my research, we went out on more trips in the backcountry and I felt more confident in my abilities. I felt like I had a plan in my head and I knew how to execute it. I knew what to pack in the morning and knew how to check the avalanche conditions so I made sure we were going somewhere safe. I also felt like I had practiced enough during my course so that if someone did get buried, I would know what to do quickly. Actually getting in the mountains with experienced skiers taught me what I couldn't learn from the internet, and it was so much more valuable. Skiing is definitely going to be a big part of my future, and I'm sure at some point I will become a ski bum with my friends. I have the skills now to be confident and safe in the backcountry. Passing on this information to my friends will also make them more safe in our skiing adventures. This Masterworks have given me the opportunity to learn from some pretty amazing people how to safely do what I now love. So now I would like to thank those people. Thank you to Dave Suda and Joanna McDonald, my external advisors, for giving me so many great tips and taking me out on an amazing backcountry day. Thank you to Jennifer Henrichsen, my mom, and my internal advisor, faculty advisor, for making me actually write my paper and write my script and practice my presentation. I couldn't have done this without you. Thank you to my dad for being my inspiration. Thank you to Joe Schwartz for taking us on an amazing backcountry trip. It was honestly such a blast. Thank you to my classmates for putting up with me talking about skiing 24/7. And lastly, thank you for coming to my presentation.
Bravo, Ms. Henrichsen. That was super informative. I can see why you're so excited about getting out in the backcountry after seeing some of the video and imagery. Very, very exciting. I'm totally jealous. I would love to be like you someday enjoying that. So we're at the time now where we're going to invite the mentors and advisors to pose some questions to you and get your feedback, and then of course we'll be opening it up to the audience here as well as our live audience via YouTube. So let me start.
So Freja, you've learned a lot this year and that's amazing. But as we know, the learning never ends. How do you plan to continue your education going forward?
I don't know. I would love to take my AST2 to advance my knowledge. Hopefully maybe this year or next season. I don't know, I might become a... Joe actually said I should not become a guide, but still seems like a fun job. But definitely maybe a ski coach later on.
I want to encourage everybody here to just to give Freja one more round of applause. This was a big task, and Freja took it on. It was a tough year to do it. So my question is, you've inspired me, even though it's sunny for the first time in a while again, and I want it to snow now because I watched you present. So my question is simple. Where are you, like what's your dream day to take me skiing next year? Where are we going?
That's a good one. I would love to take you heli skiing. Maybe we could go to the Tantalus. That you and my dad have done that, so I would like to join you, if that's okay. I don't know, I'll have a pass at Whistler next year so we can ski some good lines.
That's perfect. Look forward to it, and it's all about, you know, dreams and things to look forward to. So good job and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Excellent work, Miss Henrichsen. I have to say I'm quite honored and proud of you today. So it's been an awesome journey teaching you how to ski. Especially, that's actually kudos to your dad for that. I'm going to ask you a technical question because I'm that kind of mom. My technical question is this: what would you be looking for to avoid in the weather leading up to a trip? What would give you warning bells?
An overload of snow, warm weather, like in the springtime. Why can't I think of anything else? Yeah. Can you repeat the question?
What would you be looking for in weather to warn you not to go out or to be wary?
We'll always look at the weather stations and see what they're saying.
What would you look for in a snow pit?
Weak layers. So if there's hoarfrost, which I mentioned in my process journal, that can become a weak layer, and then that can slide if there's an overload of snow on it, which is not good because that's called a slab avalanche.
Technical. Just to keep it light, there is a phenomenon in our family that happens when we spend a lot of time in the backcountry, and it's that people in our family and friends seem to take on a Swiss accent. And so could you please give us a little glimpse of our family and the antics in the backcountry?
Ready? So this is yours. For sure. Good. In the mountains, beautiful situation. Of course, I'm with myself around, but they're not. She's doing her Masterworks, and you can see it's not a bad choice in situations. Other people maybe doing mechanical engineering, maybe cycling or something, or maybe possible Papua New Guinea and folk art situations. But now Holmes Doctor takes a great idea and says, I want to become ski. Here we are. Great job.
Great job.
for showing her. This is a question from your special advisor, Schwartzy. He wanted to know a little bit more about facets and a couple of real-life examples that you may be able to give in terms of decision-making when you're out there. Could be anything.
Oh, that's just the question?
Just a question. A couple of examples of what you would do in the backcountry when you're making decisions with that facets acronym in your mind.
I would always go into the backcountry with an open mind. Just getting out there is one thing. I mean, it's great to have an objective, but make sure to just not maybe that the only objective of the day. The objective is to just have fun. Going out with an expert is good, just so you can, I don't know, like, with your thoughts, just like, what's it called? Have a second opinion. But yeah,
So if you were out with an expert like Schwartzy or Dave Suda or Joanna here, and you were, you know, they were like pushing hard and there was an amazing line to ski and you were a little bit unsure, what would you do?
I mean, I would definitely tell them, but I think words of encouragement, like a few times with Joe, me and my brother were uncertain. But he was always like, you guys can do this, just go slow. So that was super helpful. But yeah, that's my advice.
All right.
Thank you. All right, we've got, I'm going to jump in. We don't have more good. Vigo, did you want to ask your sister a question?
I think she covered.
Okay. This one is from Emily Jones. I don't know if you know Emily, but she's here.
She's my aunt.
Okay, Aunt Emily, come in. Excellent job. I'm curious, what about wildlife? Are there many concerns at that elevation? Any safety measures?
For wildlife?
She's asking about wildlife up, I guess in those high elevations you were showing us on the video. Do you have other wildlife up there, and do they present any safety concern?
I don't think they present any safety concern. We didn't see any wildlife while we were up there, so no, I don't think that's a problem.
There we go. Aunt Emily's got her answer. All right, so I'm going to invite now some of the audience, and we'll just pull a few of you up at a time. Let's go Easton, Malcolm, Kate, and Jonas, please.
Fantastic presentation, Miss Henrichsen. I was wondering, which do you enjoy more, backcountry skiing or skiing at a resort?
This is a tough one. Actually, it's not. Backcountry skiing, there's way more POW and there's more terrain, so it's, in my opinion, much more fun. But as like in resorts like Whistler, there's a lot more terrain to choose from, and you get a lift up, so it's like you're weighing your options.
Great job. You were surrounded by a bunch of lovely advisors and so much wealth of information. You had so much to learn. As you continue in backcountry, eventually you will be the most knowledgeable on the trip. How are you going about storing all the information you're learning? How are you remembering it so when you are the one in charge, you know what to do?
Well, in the summertime, I guess I'm always thinking about skiing. So I guess I'm just always thinking about it. But in the winter, just going over possibly even my Masterworks, just bring back things in my mind. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great job, Ms. Henrichsen, on the presentation. Looks like you're going to be really fun winter trip. In the past, you shared your opinions on this, but I'd like to hear it again. ever consider trying snowboarding?
The answer is no. Thank you. I don't have a passion for snowboarding at all. I'm very harsh against it, but you do you do whatever you want. Just skiing is, how can I say this? It's just better. So, no, I would not try snowboarding. Unless you paid me.
Great job, Ms. Henderson. I'm wondering what your favorite run on backcountry or any.
Okay, my favorite run I did in the backcountry was definitely, oh gosh. It was definitely one of the days with Schwartzy, because it was just such perfect conditions. I'm gonna give you examples from all 3 days. Day 1 was probably when I fell, because it was just really funny. My ski went under the snow and it caught, and then I did a very big somersault, and I had like a few meters of air time. But it was a soft landing, so that was okay. From the second day, the heli day, all of it, literally there was not one bad run. For the last day, probably Husumi, because it was really fun. Classic line.
Let's get more. Let's have Sam, Cole, Zenon, and White.
Great job, Ms. Henrichsen. So during your presentation, you said that if you're in an avalanche, you should try to make an air pocket if you're ever covered by snow. How exactly do you make an air pocket?
Just like this over your head. Just so you have air to breathe. Although, since you're breathing hot air and snow melts, it could become like an ice crust, and then you can like pass out from CO2 or what is it? Yeah. But yeah, you just make it over your face like this.
Great presentation, Ms. Henrichsen. Where is your favorite spot to do backcountry skiing?
My favorite accessible spot is probably off of the backside of Whistler. I've been there the most. And next year I will be too, because we get passes there next year. So probably like the musical bumps area, if you know where that is.
Great presentation. I was just wondering how much all your ski stuff costs.
I got my skis and my bindings and my skins at Turkey Sale in Whistler. So the whole package of those 3 things were $800. But that's really discounted from what it would be if you bought it all brand new. So happy about that. And then my boots, what were they, like $700 or something? $700. My probe, my shovel, and my beacon came in a package for $400. So, and my poles were like $150.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to me.
Happy birthday.
Oh, and my backpack was like $300.
What about a transceiver?
That came in the package. It was these 3 things and my probe. That came all in a package of $400.
Fantastic job, Ms. Henderson. You talked a lot about how there's people in the backcountry that might not be as well versed as you are in how to deal with avalanches. If you could give them one piece of advice from your project that could possibly prevent them getting caught in these accidents, what would it be?
This is a big one, but take AST1. That's like the main thing you have to do. But if they can't do that, which they shouldn't be going if they can't, probably just check the avalanche conditions and make sure you have all the safety gear.
We've got time for a few more. Phoebe, Hannah, and Hayden. Come on up.
Great job, Ms. Henrichsen. I have a technical question and another question. What was the most surprising thing you learned during ASC 1?
I need to think back on this. Surprising thing I learned? I don't know what the most surprising thing I learned was, because I kind of already knew it just from my dad and Suda talking and my research that I'd done. But a big thing was like the steps that you take to do a search and rescue. That was like, there's a lot. There's like an 11-step card that you have to do. You would just think, pull out your beacon, ski down. No, it's like 11 steps.
Great. And my second question was, you might have learned about this, I don't know. Did you learn what wumping is below the tree line? And if you did, what is it?
Wumping, I think this is what it is. It's when you're usually on a flat place below tree line, and it's when a weak layer collapses and you can hear this wumping sound. I haven't yet heard it, but apparently it's very distinctive. Am I right? Yeah.
Very well done, Ms. Henrichsen. I have a question for you. If you had to live in a world without skiing, or in a world with skiing but you were not allowed to do it, it was forbidden to you, which would you rather live in?
I would rather live in a world. That's like the worst two options you could have given me. I don't know. I mean, you could still watch skiing, but that would just make you more depressed. So probably a world without skiing. That sounds so awful.
Awesome presentation, Ms. Henrichsen. I was wondering, have you ever seen an avalanche in person? And if so, what was it like?
I have not seen an avalanche in person, but I've seen many videos and I've seen like runouts. The videos are very scary. Some avalanches can wipe out a small town. So that's just really scary. The ones that I've seen, like just runouts, we skied past one in Whistler. It was like in the resort. And it's insane just to like look at all of the debris. And I saw a massive one, where was it? Near, like it was backcountry off of Whistler.
They're also bombing in the south.
Oh, I did see an avalanche actually, bombing, but they were bombing at Whistler the first day that we went out with Schwartzy. And it was really cool to see, but also kind of spooky.
All right, well, we're coming up on the hour. I'm going to look to the master here. Have a little consultation.
We're nodding.
There's a nod in the house, which tells me that Miss Freja Henrichsen has fully achieved all the requirements of the Island Pacific School Masterworks program. Congratulations.